stop and ask questions as we go, because I want to make sure you're clear. This is to give you something to think about over lunch, to chat with each other. There'll be many other opportunities to talk more about this. And later, today or tomorrow, we'll talk about how this applies to you. Right now, it's just background in general. So, well, evidence, effectiveness. These are three words that are often used interchangeably in evaluation, but I'm going to say they're quite different. And I'm going to focus on evaluation. There's an increasing demand on policy decision makers to provide transparent and explicit justification for decisions that are made. So it has to do with funding. So in a way, we can't avoid getting into this idea of evaluation and developing it, because if we can show evidence of our programs that they're effective, then we can get funding. And I think it's foolish to think that it is not tied to funding, because it is. Hopefully there's something else to it, but it is tied to funding. So, also the other thing that happens with evaluation, I think, is that valuable lessons get missed. They get ignored and discounted. And also, there is a huge question about what counts as evidence. And I know over the next 2 days we'll talk about this, but I want you to start thinking about it. What is evidence? And what counts for evidence? And I'll premise by saying that I think most often what counts as evidence is statistics, numbers. And I want you to start thinking about that. Why is that true? Or is it true for you? It is certainly true in my world, and I do a lot of evaluations. So why is that so powerful? And I want you to start thinking of questions. The next issue is about, we call it the gambit of compliance. And it has to do with what you've all been talking about, and you talked about in your groups. It's about, often programs are driven by funders' requests for evaluation. So, only. They're not really driven by what you, as practitioners working with people, actually know is important. They're driven by the funders and by their requests and what they need. Now, I'm going to make a point here. We are very fortunate in this project that we have a very flexible funder, more than anyone I've ever worked with before. And when he says we can change things, we can. This is so unusual. And in fact, Likia has been talking to me about this. She says, first time ever that she's worked on an evaluation where you could actually change what you want to do. So thank you, Matthew. I think it's important. And when we get into this gamut of compliance, what we end up having is very poor evaluations. So we have a lot of information that we can't use. So we waste our time. 10% of our budget for the program should be on evaluation. But what I want to talk about, what I want to work with you on in the next 2 days, is what information is it that we need that's important? And how can we do this in a continuous way? How can we do this in a way that we provide evidence for effectiveness across programs? It's an interesting concept. There's a lot of work in the world going on about this. I'm going to talk about it this afternoon or tomorrow morning, depending on how we do. Because ultimately, that's where we're headed. We're headed towards the idea, if we did the evaluation well, and in a certain way, we could actually synthesize the evidence across all of your programs and show that the POETA program in general is highly effective. Do you believe me? See? Good. Good. It's a good start. Okay. This slide has a lot of information on it, but it's very important. And you will get it. I'm going to just talk about the highlights of it. Basically, this slide is saying that there are many ways to do evaluation. And there's way more than 3. But I've categorized them into 3 ways. There's what we might call traditional orthodox evaluation. There's social science, sometimes called human science evaluation. And then there's collaborative action evaluation, which is where I'm going to go after we talk a little bit about this. Because I want to talk about why. Why do I want to go over here? So with traditional evaluation, and I now know that you all have some experience with this, because I heard you reported on it. So the issue with this type of evaluation, very, very important. I want you to hear me talk about these as different. They have different purposes. One is not better than the other, but they are different than each other, and they have different reasons to do them. The purpose down here of this kind of research is to get empirical knowledge or create individual behavior change. It's all about collecting evidence. The evaluator is a methodologist. Okay? The view of the participants are they are subjects that are going to give you information. You're going to collect information from them. But you're going to make all the interpretation and the meaning. Okay, in the social science, are you with me? Is this okay? In the social science type of evaluation, the purpose is quite different. It's to get more understanding or meaning of experiences that people are having. It's trying to explicate, like to pull out what is going on. In this view, in this tradition, the view of the evaluator is much more of a facilitator. And the subjects are seen as informants. They're giving you information. However, the researcher evaluator is still making the interpretations of the data. In the final one, which I will call collaborative action evaluation, which is a form of participatory action research based on Freire's work. It's very much a Latin American tradition, and I think that it's interesting that in North America we have adopted this. We are so intrigued with this, but I think it is much more natural in your world. So I want to say, so use it. It belongs to you. So I think it's quite interesting. I'm going to tell you about what I think is more natural in your country, because we use it a lot in my country. So from this view of this collaborative action evaluation, you're working in a different paradigm, totally. Not a positivist one, not a human science one, but an emancipatory one. It's all about freedom. It's all about liberation in thinking. So we're not trying to convince anyone of anything. We're trying to understand and co-create meaning. We become partners now. And in fact, the evaluator is more like a social activist. For me, this is important. If you look at the values, often traditional research and evaluation is said to be value-free. This simply is not the case. The value is about objectivity. Here, the value is about subjectivity, understanding people's experiences. Here, we work from a relational ontology. It's us together, what we co-create. So we're looking for a collective understanding. Not necessarily consensus, but a collective understanding. And we're looking for systemic change. So it focused totally on change, not on understanding, not on gathering information, but on trying to change a system. And it's about, and this is the part that speaks so clearly to me, because my background is a nurse first. I'm a psychologist as well, but my background is a nurse. So I care a lot about transforming practices. And I see evaluation as practice, not as a program. And I will talk more about that. So next slide. Are you okay with this? Do you need me to say more about this? Or is everyone clear? You don't have to agree yet. Now I want to move and say, so again, remembering that these are different traditions and they have different purposes, the major issue for me around traditional or orthodox evaluation and research is that it is not empowering and it does not build capacity. So I want to talk about that issue over just a few slides by comparing, not comparing, but by describing how traditional evaluation actually disempowers. Because and I do this type of evaluation. Sometimes it is required, it's what's needed, okay, so it's not that, it is the most common type of evaluation done. So the difficulty I have with it is, you pay me as a consultant to come in, and I start with my questions. I ask you some questions, but I really find the questions myself.